Thank you, Jake, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll try to make this as quick as possible. There is a lot to cover of everything that we experienced, and it was exhausting just going through it, let alone trying to explain it. But I'll save all, like if at any point you guys have any questions, you want me to stop or pause so we can, discuss further or anything else, just let me know. Next slide, please. So I initially actually applied for the Capital Forum, which was last year. It had a little bit of a different application than the one I went to did. This conference was focused mainly on Hispanic serving institutions and higher education in general, whereas the last one was legislation focused around that. So I'm not sure what the selection process was. I just threw my name out there the first time, and I didn't expect, true to form, I got turned down for that one, but then luckily Susanna contacted me later and said I was selected for the next one. So I'm not sure who's involved in that selection process, but whoever was, thank you, because that was really, really eye-opening experience. I wanted to go just because I feel like I'm so narrowly experienced. I transitioned straight from the military, doing a job I did in the military, to doing it as a defense contractor. And one of the greatest things that I've learned so far going to school is that there's a whole nother world out there. And this opportunity presented itself, and I really thought it'd be a good way to broaden my experience, both in terms of meeting other people and networking, and just learning about other industries and what's out there. So, and I'm going to pause real quick. I just want to give a special shout out to Susanna and Elsie for helping me coordinate the trip and get all the travel and stuff squared away. So thank you to them. Next slide, please. So the travel and arrival, and I just kind of wanted to touch on this a little bit too. It's so humbling and inspiring whenever an organization such as University of Arizona selects you. And it meant a lot to me. I'm sure a lot of you guys travel quite a bit, but the whole process to me it was really inspiring and motivated me to do the best I could to represent the university. So Atlanta was a beautiful city. I hadn't been there in a really long time, and the hotel was beautiful, and I got to catch up with Dr. Satara and Buckner while we were there. So that was really neat to experience all that. Next slide, please. So this thing was 3 full days of just seminars teaching the students skills, but also blending in challenges that the Hispanic community is facing in terms of getting that higher education, as well as a lot of motivational stories being thrown in via the governing board, handing out their awards for people who support HACU, as well as Hispanic serving institutions that are really paving the way as an example. So I'm going to try to cover all this as quickly as I can. But like I said, if you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to stop me. So the first day, they always started out with a student-employer networking breakfast. That gave the opportunity for all the people who were there representing their schools, as well as employers trying to recruit, a chance to all eat together and network. That first day, I will admit, I came in a little bit cynical just because I am older than most of the people that were there. Non-traditional student, pretty well into my career. I wasn't that interested in jumping jobs, but as I got further on into this experience, that really opened up my eyes and opened up my mind to what's out there. So the first day, all that to say, the first day I just focused on networking with other students to see what their experience was and how they got to be where they are, and a lot of inspirational stories. A lot of students who went through a lot, especially a lot of Puerto Rican students who were devastated by the hurricanes, and they sold everything they had. Their parents sold everything they had and relocated to the U.S., the mainland, just so that those students can continue their education. And it made me kind of take a step back and realize I have nothing to complain about, and I have no excuses. So, after that, we went into a short seminar presented by LinkedIn about social media. That was really neat. As an older person, I don't really use social media a lot, but now I understand its importance, especially in the professional context. And they really helped me gain some skills in terms of how to set that up, and I have been using it, and it actually has helped me quite a bit. And then after that, we went into a budgeting class. There I wasn't able to learn so much as I was to be able to help others. I ended up talking a lot to the other students about what I've experienced in my own life in terms of learning how to budget and stuff like that. So that was neat. And then after that, we had our welcome from the president of HACU, Dr. Antonio Flores. Very inspirational guy, very charismatic. I'm not sure if any of you guys have met him, but man, this guy, you could tell why he's in the position he's in, because he's just so nice, down to earth, but when you realize all the things that he does and all that he's accomplished, it's really amazing. So he just touched a little bit on why he chose Atlanta and why he and the governing board chose Atlanta, which was kind of interesting. Come to find out that they chose Atlanta because Georgia had recently passed legislation that restricted DACA students from being able to secure federal loans to be able to go to school. And it's really disappointing because...
Could you say that again?
So Georgia recently passed legislation restricting DACA students from being able to get loans to go to school.
No state could restrict federal.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure, but he's...
Right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have affected all states?
And it did, because that's why we can't either.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
There must be
been other legislation, but it's just disappointing because, there's already enough challenges as it is to get through education. Like, for me, I was very fortunate to secure VA funding, but outside of that, I have 4 children, and my wife had just recently, we had paid for her to go get her master's degree. So there would have been almost no way that I could have done that on my own, let alone someone who has, like some of these people from Puerto Rico or other countries that I've heard of who've dropped and sold everything just to get here and then try to get an education. So he touched on that a little bit, and it was disappointing to hear, but at the same time heartening to hear what he plans to do about it, such as activities through the Capitol Forum to encourage legislators to see the benefit of actually educating these people as opposed to restricting them. So we did a few more classes. I'm not going to really cover that just because we still have a lot more to cover. So next slide, please. Just want to show you guys some pictures. All the hard work I was doing.
Sponsored by Kellogg.
Yeah, so Kellogg's sponsored all 3 days of the networking breakfast.
awesome.
And unrelated, but Tony the Tiger there told me to try one of their special recipes, which was putting coffee grounds in cereal. And it actually worked. It was pretty good with strawberries.
And fills you up at the same
Like
I was like, so that's why he's always like,
Yeah.
But you can see pictures there of President Flores.
Okay, yeah.
Now we know him.
Yep. Now Michelle knows him.
So day two, another day of the Student Employer Networking Breakfast. This time, actually made an effort to reach out to some of the employers that were walking around. And I made some really good contacts, learned a lot of really neat things. The one that I do want to touch on one of the classes is the CIA session. the 4 L's of leadership. I am an organizational leadership program student, so that one was kind of near and dear to my heart. And what was neat about that class is they separated us into groups as both a test and a way for us to kind of learn. And they wanted to see who would end up taking charge and who the groups would nominate as the group leader to demonstrate some of the principles. And just almost subconsciously, I took some of the things that I learned from these courses and applied them to that group setting. And sure enough, they nominated me to be the group spokesman, and which was really helpful to me because the CIA asked me to stop by their booth afterwards and asked me to apply, and I did. So.
Well, don't tell us because then you have to tell us.
We won't tell anyone.
The whole gist of that, why they chose me, was because I was a veteran. I am older. And the story I told of my leadership experience of being in the Army was that of diversification, which was near and dear to HACU's heart.
Right.
And I said, you know, something I've learned over the years between the military and now in Northrop Grumman and being a father of 4 is that diversity is awesome. Diversity, especially in the military, really helped open my eyes to all the various approaches and lenses at which you can look through things. So. The awesome outcome of that was all the other veteran students that were there came out of the woodwork and introduced themselves, so we created this little bond there. To include one awesome story I do want to mention was a Marine that I met. He was in Afghanistan about the same time that I was, and he had decided that he wanted to go get his master's degree and go back to work for the LAPD. And that kind of surprised me. I was like, why do you want to put yourself in danger like that? And like here again, one of those inspirational stories where all he wanted to do was help the people in that area. He's like, encourage people to go to the military because it's an awesome way to see the world and to learn and give yourself like a global perspective on everything, help you mature, and then just, you know, lend a helping hand wherever he could. So that was really neat. After that, we did a student exhibitor mixer, which was the exhibition hall that they had. So many schools, employers, agencies that were all trying to recruit or to help you secure, increase or advanced degrees, things like that. And I don't know how they expected any of us to hit every one of them, because they had a prize that they would give out if you got signatures from every booth. So we could have been there like 2 weeks and I wouldn't have been able to see everybody. So it was neat. And then the power lunch, I want to go ahead and go to the next slide. I wanted to talk about that. We were in the main hall. I guess I didn't put a picture in there. We were back in the main hall in the plenary area, and they were presenting awards, and they actually had the first Latina congressional woman speak.
I was Mendoza,
Liliana
Martinez,
I forget her last name.
from New York, right?
Yeah, Florida. But it was very inspirational to hear that. And this is like something that I didn't even come to mind, because they also mentioned that that round of elections was also the first to see a Muslim woman be elected. And the mayor of Atlanta actually spoke as well, and she expressed her story and how she came to be where she was, and it was because of institutions like HACU and other African American organizations that really inspired her and helped her to get to where she was. So it was amazing to see that. And then the last one was a representative from Deloitte. I think that's how you pronounce it. Jorge Caballero. Like that guy was really inspirational. He's he's in a top position in a consulting firm, and he broke down crying like 3 different times because they always take interns, and 2 of his HACU interns are in really high positions now, and this was from 10 plus years ago.
Wow.
It was just a great example of how HACU really helps people and gives them the tools and opportunities mainly to succeed. And I think that's the hardest thing for underrepresented groups like Hispanics, is that they just don't have the opportunity. If they were just given the opportunity, then they could, then we could see whether they pass or fail. But too often they just don't ever get the chance. So it was really neat to see companies like Deloitte really making that effort to give people those opportunities. And then they also did the power networking. So we sat in groups, and employer recruiters came by to each group and just gave like a quick 1-minute pitch of their company, and then they took questions from all the students. Here again, I was kind of like, I don't know why I'm here, because I'm not really looking for a job. But it actually ended up being really neat. Representative from the Army came by, and we told some great stories. It's cool, man. And, but one of the more interesting people was a representative from Coors Miller, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he was in charge of all Latino outreach for Coors Miller. So, but he wanted to take the opportunity to talk to everybody. And his story was very inspiring as well. He was an immigrant from Venezuela, had nothing when he came here, didn't even speak English, but worked and got through it, got educated, got his degrees, and then he started working for Coors Miller and got those opportunities. And now he's, reciprocating by trying to do the same thing for other people. It's really humbling to meet someone like that. And then the other one was a representative from Travelers Insurance, which, when he first came by, I was like, I don't know if anyone really wants to work for Travelers. But then you meet the guy, and he was this...
It's 22 hours.
He was like, he probably could have done anything that he wanted to do, because he was, you could just tell, like, he could take anybody and inspire them and develop them to be motivated and to do whatever they wanted. And I actually, using the skills I used earlier on LinkedIn, connected with him, and I've been communicating with him pretty often. So
That's awesome.
Great.
And then at the end of the day, we did professional headshots, which came out. I actually used that to put on my LinkedIn.
CIA worthy, you know that?
Yep.
CIA worthy.
That's why I want to give kudos to the photographer, because that was at the end of the day, and I was tired. Next slide, please. So the last day, a lot more of the same, more skills workshops, and I wanted to put those in there just because it was so comprehensive, this experience, from learning. I kind of went in there with a little bit of cynicism, probably a bigger head than I should have. But by the time I was out of there, I was so humbled and grateful for, I learned a lot of things that I thought I already knew about, especially the interview skills, because I'm a hiring manager myself, and I've hired about 50 people over the course of the past 2 years. So I had a lot of advice to give to people, but I also learned a lot too, especially in terms of across all these skills seminars, is the differences in generational thought and culture, and how we can, as an older generation, can really maximize our impact and work together. And I learned a lot of things in that interview skills workshop on how to communicate more effectively with that younger generation. So it was a really neat experience. And then the student exhibitor mixer, I added that in there just because it was the last day. I tried to talk to as many people as I could, and I ended up printing out about 50 resumes. And this, I wanted, saying that to demonstrate my mind shift in the time from when I first got there to when I left. I was like, yeah, I want to hear about more opportunities, So talked to the CIA. I did interviews with major food distributor, Sudexo, for program management, and the Fish and Wildlife Service, which I never would have thought to apply for, but they had program management positions, and it was just really interesting. So I Air Force Civilian Service, Coast Guard, on the civilian side, and just tons of people. And actually, before I went to this conference, I had it in my mind that I was going to finish my bachelor's and then be done. That I was going to take at least a few years break before I even entertained going into my master's. And after this experience, I was like, nope, I'm committed, and I've already begun the process of applying for the Eller MBA program. So
Jake. Oh, so good.
So yeah, there again, you know, that's all I kind of wanted to touch on with that stuff. But all that to say, you know, like really thank you guys for giving me that opportunity, and it has been life changing because it's like gave me that perspective I needed to be humble, but at the same time motivated to really get out there and make an impact. So lastly, next slide please. Dr. Flores, at the end of the day, to cap it all off, touched on the immigration reform and really went into detail on why higher education is so critical, especially for underrepresented groups. So it's very inspirational, and it made me take a step back and realize all the things that I could do in terms of just personal outreach, mentorship, and recruiting, and working with organizations like HACU as a hiring manager to try to give opportunities to those underrepresented groups. So I actually connected with Gaston Cantu, who is their internship coordinator. And I actually got him talking to one of our vice presidents who does recruiting and internships for Northrop Grumman. So I'm hoping that, you know, between U of A South, HACU, and Northrop Grumman that we can, you know, begin those discussions to create some sort of pipeline for them. And, you know, which is beneficial to us because it's really hard for us in this area to recruit highly educated people like that, so that we just be.
And you will
need
work on
opportunities.
giving them the security clearance and
Yeah.
internship?
Yep.
That is fantastic.
So, and then, kind of out of order, but that's a picture of the mayor of Atlanta there in the bottom left. All right, next slide. So, reflection, conclusion, kind of already went over a lot of that during the presentation, but learned a lot of things, networked with some amazing people that I still continue to keep in touch with. It's very motivating and inspiring, and it made me want to do a lot more in terms of professional and personal development, as well as like helping others, especially encouraging those underrepresented groups to go out there and at least take the chance. Don't be afraid of failure, because more often than not, you'll find that you can succeed. Because there's so many people out there willing to help you, and that's what was so eye-opening about this, is you have all these institutions, educational institutions, and the amazing people within those groups, as well as all these students. And I thought there would be this dichotomy between me and that younger generation when they were, you know, just as supportive of me as they were anybody else. And it really gave me a lot of, you know, re-energized my faith in humanity, because like, you have all these amazingly talented, educated people doing all these great things, and none of them had egos. Everyone was just super supportive of each other, and I was like, wow, like I need to do a lot better. So that was neat. And then the successes, obviously, you know, my change in mindset, the fact that I'm going to now go right into my master's program, and just, you know, not being afraid to reach out and help people, I think was one of my biggest takeaways from that. And it was very humbling. Met so many good people, and people who had been through a lot, and I'm like, I have no excuse, so I just.
Yeah, so Jay, so you were talking about how, you're inspired now and how it motivated you and re-energized you. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on how you can bring that to the community here as well? I know that you work for HR, that's a big company, you want to go to HACU and recruit and stuff, but.
Yeah, so obviously I have a lot of help there as well through my wife. She's a huge go-getter, and she's constantly just humbling me as well in terms of the amount of things that she takes on for the community. So I get voluntold a lot to go help with Peaches Pantry.
Yeah.
We support the U of A South Foundation. We went to their Dining Under the Stars, and that was, I felt like it was more beneficial to us because that was a really good time.
Yeah.
But just things like that, like we always have our feelers out there in terms of what can we do for the community, because we have 4 kids here, so we want to make it better too. Like, it's not just about getting them into sports or anything. It's like it's exposing them to making things better around them, and in the process of doing that, you help other people, but you're helping yourself as well. So.
Well, I was thinking.
Michelle has ideas for you.
Well, I was just wondering, like, you just said something that I think this is what I'm going to take away, I think, from what you had shared with us today, is that there's a generational conversation gap, right? And it's knowing how to speak with the generations that are younger than us, and we're working with them, and here there are students and stuff, and out in the community, we don't reach the younger ones as much, but I wasn't sure if there was like a Hispanic Student Association in the high school, or like because you were focused very much on supporting Hispanic students, right? And
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I guess I was just trying to, I didn't know if you know whether or not they have.
I don't specifically, but when I talked to Gaston Cantu, that was part of our emphasis, was to,
I don't know who that is.
he was the internship coordinator for
Oh, yeah,
HACU.
that's right, okay.
And he's the one that helps identify the companies that can take on all these interns. And because HACU gets funding from using some of their donations to help get these guys to those locations. So they may do like an 8 or 12-week internship that HACU helps subsidize their room and board while they're there working.
I'm talking about you.
Oh, well, this is me personally.
In this community, and now knowing how to speak with that generation, because we learned a lot about the communication, difference in communication, and reaching the younger generation here in our community, the Hispanic generation.
I do. Well, now that I'm finally getting to get some of my life back after being done with school, I already intended on doing more of that outreach. So, for one, lending some of the skills and experience that I have. I have already talked to a lot of the high school students. As a matter of fact, we're sponsoring a tour. They're bringing about 40 students from the JTED group out to the flight line that I manage, and we're going to show them the UAV and show them what we do and things like that. And I'm going to take that opportunity to network heavily with not only the Cochise College people who deal with the high schoolers, as well as it was neat that I found out that we had a former employee who works for the high school now. So I started, like, in the process of setting up that tour, I'm already been talking to them, like how can we improve this relationship and how can we help these guys? And I love it because I'm already seeing those success stories. I have 2 people that I highlighted. The Cochise College just recently did their 50th anniversary for the aviation, and we are a big component of that. We set up a static display that I helped coordinate, and I made these big poster boards of 3 of our employees who went through that program and are now successful Northrop Grumman people. And 2 of them were born and raised in Douglas. Spanish as a first language, and they came through that program, and I actually hired them on as interns. And now, like, they have their security clearance, they have this amazing, really well-paying job. They've already served their country as a defense contractor overseas in Afghanistan, and it's changed their lives. And it's just neat to see those I don't know what you would call that, home-based or homegrown success. Yeah.
Homegrown professionals. I love that. Thank you.
So, yep, that's all I got.
Question, so.
Yeah. Moved right on to the question. Any other questions from anybody?
I have one. I sent it to you, the chat. But basically, I'm curious what you think of the new university designator across campus. That's from the main campus as well. I've sat in a couple of meetings where they're bringing this up, that we are now a Hispanic serving organization, or we've been designated that. And I wonder, what does that mean to you, and how do you think we can, on the student services side, share that with students? Like, what's the value of that?
That's something that I really thought a lot about during that conference. Was they kept saying that. They kept saying Hispanic serving institutions, and there were some schools there, mainly from California and Texas, that had huge representation from their student body. And it was because of that designation that they were able to secure special government funding to really help them advance these programs and help them get more exposure. So I think that's really great for this organization, especially if the university can send more people more of our students to things like that, because it literally was a life-changing experience. And that's coming from a non-traditional student who's older and is well established in a job. I can't imagine like how humbling it would be for someone, you know, about to graduate and just is really scared about what the prospects are after that. Like being able to go to something like that to cap it all off would be amazing. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but as far as getting it out there, it's just through programs like this. You know, obviously it'll take a little bit of time to gain that momentum, but the more people you have going to this, and then, you know, obviously I'm going to talk a lot about it to other people that I go to school with, which is mostly non-traditional, but, you know, as you diversify the type of people that you send to these things, it's, you know, the word's going to get out, and it's going to be really good for both the school and all these people going to it.
Melissa, we can't hear you. I don't see, you're muted though, so that's not good.
Yeah.
Do you want to type it in the chat? Michelle can ask her question in the meantime. Do you want?
Oh, she wants to take a picture.
Oh. And typing a question. Michelle, did you have another question in the meantime?
Yeah. Why, you kept saying that you were cynical and you were cynical going. What did you think you were going to get out of it? And, yeah.
I mainly wanted to go because I wanted to broaden my experience. I wanted to, I just felt like I needed that recharge of motivation. And I wanted to see if there are any other opportunities out there, because with this organizational leadership degree under my belt now, that kind of opens the doors, and, you know, maybe wanted to entertain doing something else. But like I said, once I got there, it was everything was beneficial, and I wanted to remain open-minded, and they proved me dead wrong in terms of the people that I met, even all the skills workshops, things that I thought that I was, you know, an expert in. I still learned a lot of really neat things in terms of how to apply it in a more modern context, and it just re-emphasizes the fact that we can always continue to learn, and that's something that, you know, as an older student, that I'm glad to hear, you know, that there's always something new to learn. You can always improve, even on things that you think that you've mastered. There's, you know, education is constantly evolving, and the way that people approach it and experience it is all different. So it's neat to hear all those different perspectives.
So Melissa had wanted to share and make sure everyone else knew too, but the UA South, actually as a branch campus, has been designated as a Hispanic serving institution since 2005, 13 years. And so that's one of the reasons that we have sent students to the Capitol Forum and to this conference in the past, because we've been able to as a Hispanic serving institution, and the main campus of the U of A hasn't been able to do that. before, because you actually have to be an Hispanic serving institution to participate in those kinds of activities.
To really see how our.
And the internship.
Scholarships, the internships. I know HACU has like 20 stages of just these scholarships where you have to be in Hispanic serving institution as well. You know, to apply for these scholarships. So we saw the benefit of being in Hispanic serving institutions because main campus wasn't.
Right. And now, now it's just opened this door for the rest of the institutions to be able to participate in these things. And I think for us, I think it's actually a really good thing, even though we're not the only ones anymore. I think it's a good thing because it has this institutional vision now behind it, right? And institutional resources that we didn't have before that now can support us in what we're doing with our students as well.
And like I said, some of these schools, I think it was UC Bakersfield, had like almost 30 some students at this thing. And it would have been like, it's not that critical, but it would have been really neat to go with a larger group like that. Because then, afterwards, after everyone was released for the day, I just went home and went back to my hotel room and did homework. Like everyone else was like going out on Atlanta and having a good old time. And that would have been really cool to like get everybody else's take, especially from a common area, a common school, on what they experienced that day. So hopefully we can make that happen. I don't know.
I know I saw a picture with Barbara and Melody Buckner. Did you guys meet after?
Yeah, so that was actually after the opening, the power lunch. I had been trying to reach them because I had saw on they had actually made an app during the conference, and it showed you everybody that was in attendance on the app. So I scrolled through quickly just to see if anyone else from Arizona was attending, and I saw that Dr. Buckner and Satara were there. So I, messaged them and figured out what their numbers were, and I started texting them, and we actually got to meet up and talk.
So you were not alone all the time.
Okay. Any other questions? When do you graduate, Jay? Like 2 days from now?
Yep.
Thanks.
I still have about a week and a half, because it's been a lot, so like I usually take all the time they allot me to get stuff done. So I'm the guy that's always turning in on the last day you can turn it in.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you guys for your time, and I hope that was beneficial.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not sure who decides who goes, but man, like I feel really lucky to.
So we have the names on the board.
Or send them flowers.
That's good. I'm glad I have a really big name then.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being an amazing U of A representative. I know it was kind of funny because he applied for the Capital Forum back in March, April. But when we saw that we had funding to send one student to the annual conference, we didn't want to open again the process. We didn't want to go over just for one student. And so we went over all the applicants, and you were one of our top candidates last time. So we're like, let's invite Jake. And you said yes. Yeah, so, and thank you so much. I know, like, I remember the day that he left, I was texting him because I didn't know you personally. So I was a little bit worried of like, maybe he has never flown before and he's flying snow. Yeah, so I was texting you. I'm sorry, I was just freaking out over here. But then one time, I think Sarah told me that you were with your wife the Understars, the U of A South Foundation. And I was like, okay, so I guess I shouldn't worry that much. He knows how to take care of himself. But yeah, so I was a little bit worried here. And you would have been going with Cochise College students. Unfortunately, things happened and we were not able to send Cochise College students this last time. But usually we go in as a group, Cochise College and U of A. So hopefully next year we can send students from both institutions to the Capital Forum. So there is a committee, and so Alan Aguirre and Nogales, he's part of the committee. Marla in Tucson, she's part of the committee. Melissa Silva is part of the committee. Becky is also part of the committee. Josette is part of the committee over there in Sierra Vista. So we have a committee. So it's not like, oh, let's just pick a student. So, thank you so much for everything. Thank you for being on top of everything. Thank you for being an amazing representative.
Thank you, Susanna. And thank you to everyone on the committee for giving me that opportunity. It really was awesome.
Well, thank you, Jake. I said before you got here that, you know, it's the end of the semester, it's almost holidays, we're kind of dragging. We weren't putting any pressure on you, but you definitely came through and I think made everyone feel recharged. So if HACU recharged you, you then came back and recharged us. So thank you very much for sharing your experiences.
No problem.
Great, thank you. Do you want your UVA flash drive? You have to get something for this, right? Yeah. All right, thanks, Jake.
We start the MBA program in January.
All next year.
So you already applied though?
I started the application because I found out I don't have to do the GMAT. That was like.
That's right, because you're a veteran.
Yep.
Nice. Awesome. They waived the GMAT for veterans.
That was probably the biggest reason. Because I had already kind of put it in my head that I was going to go in the fall. But then once I found out I have to take, and I did that to prepare for the trip.
Yeah.
And I found out I have to take it, I was like, well, now I actually get a vacation. All right, it was nice meeting you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. Bye.
Yeah.